Hi, my name is Jesse. Today I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. That means that it is a decentralized form of digital currency existing only in a virtual state. They are transferred through the internet by way of peer-to-peer, meaning the coin is sent directly from person to person without crossing over a middleman like a bank. Bitcoins have several other advantages. They can be used globally without any transaction fees or account fees. A user's account cannot be seized or frozen, and also cannot be bound by any contracts or limits. Just about anyone can exchange real money for Bitcoin at any time, and more companies now accept Bitcoin, like Microsoft, PayPal, and Overstock.com. Before I get into how Bitcoins work, let's talk about public ledgers. All transactions from the beginning of a Bitcoin's creation are stored in a public ledger. The identities of the coin owners are encrypted. The ledger ensures that corresponding digital wallets can calculate an accurate spendable balance. Also, new transactions can be checked to ensure that each transaction uses only coins currently owned by the spender. For the purpose of Bitcoin, this public ledger is called a transaction blockchain. Every user has their own copy of the ledger. The record itself is completely public, so ideally everyone is looking at the identical histories of every single Bitcoin transaction. The digital currency only works because of the trust that other people will also value it. If you'll sell something for a certain amount of Bitcoin, you have to trust that everyone else will see that amount of Bitcoin for the same value that you do. When you want to send or receive money, you broadcast a message telling everyone the recipient, sender, and the amount. Since every transaction is also encrypted, it is ensured that all the information in a transaction cannot be traced. Every user of Bitcoin then updates their own ledgers to reflect the new transaction. For a transaction to be successful, it must be added to something called the blockchain. The blockchain is a public ledger of all transactions in a network, and the Bitcoin blockchain is specifically a record of all Bitcoin transactions. Bitcoin uses this blockchain to track the records of ownership. Only one person can have a Bitcoin at a time, and every transaction made is stored publicly. No one can interfere with this because of the nature of decentralization. Generally speaking, the blockchain is where all transaction information is stored, what wallets check to confirm ownership of Bitcoin, and how new Bitcoins are created. The fact that so many have the same record, and that so many are trying to confirm the same transactions, helps to ensure each sequential block of the chain is accurate. Once a block is added to the chain, it is there forever and becomes public record. The idea of blockchains can be applied to future ideas to run entire companies on decentralized algorithms. Examples are self-driving cars, identity protection, and device tracking. A transfer of funds between two digital wallets is called a transaction. That transaction gets submitted to the blockchain and awaits confirmation. When you create a Bitcoin account, you are given an account number and a private key. The private key is what is stored in each individual's digital wallet. A function is then run on the transaction message and the private key in order to create a signature. Then the signature, the account number, and transaction message are run against another function to ensure the account owner is valid and that the transaction is the one in question. Signatures are unique to each transaction. The confirmation process takes a bit of time, about 10 minutes for Bitcoin, while Bitcoin users called miners confirm transactions and add them to the public ledger. Mining is the process by which certain Bitcoin users compete with each other to discover new Bitcoins and add recent Bitcoin transactions to Bitcoin's public ledger, or the transaction blockchain. Recall that in order to spend or receive Bitcoins, a Bitcoin user must create a transaction and broadcast it to the entire network. Then, for this transaction to successfully go through, it must be permanently recorded on the blockchain. Mining is the process of adding recent transactions to the blockchain and thereby making them a permanent part of the Bitcoin public ledger. Let's dive into how this works. In order to add transactions to the blockchain, all of the miners collect the transactions recently broadcast by other Bitcoin users in a pool, and then verify that the transactions are valid according to the blockchain. Then compile them down into a transaction block, a condensed record of all the transactions for that period of time. Of course, if any miner could simply create a transaction block and immediately add it to the permanent ledger, then anyone who wanted to could just create a fake transaction block, for example one in which they spend Bitcoins that they don't own, and add it to the ledger. Because of this, the Bitcoin algorithm is designed to make mining difficult. Instead of being able to add a transaction block to the blockchain at will, a miner has to solve a very difficult computational puzzle called a proof of work scheme. This proof of work scheme was designed to have solutions that are very easy to verify, but difficult to find. Let's now discuss this proof of work scheme. Bitcoin in particular uses SHA-256 for its proof of work algorithm, which takes a string and converts it to a nearly unique 256-bit signature. The SHA, by the way, stands for Secure Hash Algorithm. This method makes verification simple because verifying the signature if you know the string is easy, but it is very difficult to find the string from the signature. In order to solve the hash, you simply have to brute force it, which means you have to guess random numbers. The random number you generate will be put into a function with the next chain in the block and the transaction. If it's correct, it will pass, and if you're not, you'll just have to guess again. That's why it takes so much compute power to mine bitcoins, because several billion attempts will have to be made to solve just one hash algorithm. Bitcoin is programmed to allow for one transaction block to be mined every 10 minutes. The algorithm adjusts after every 216 blocks, which theoretically is every 2 weeks, to get easier or harder based on how long it actually took for these 216 blocks to be mined. So if it only took 13 days for the network to mine 216 blocks, that means it's too easy to mine, so the difficulty increases. However, it takes 15 days for the network to mine 216 blocks. That shows that it's too hard to mine, so the difficulty decreases. In summary, what Bitcoin miners are actually doing is competing with each other to see who can solve a difficult cryptographic puzzle first. When one miner finds the solution to the problem, they broadcast their solution to all the other miners. The other miners then verify that the solution is correct. If it is, the network permanently adds the successfully mined block to the publicly accepted blockchain. Since several attempts at logging the block to the chain are made at once, it can be ensured that every transaction is accurate. The miner who won the mining race and was the first to successfully solve the puzzle is then rewarded for the effort with 25 newly discovered bitcoins. This possibility of reward acts as an incentive for miners to keep investing computational time and effort into mining Bitcoin. This new creation of bitcoins also acts as a way to add to the overall Bitcoin money supply. Bitcoin is a way into the future of currency. It's infinitely complex and easy to interact with if you don't care about what's going on under the hood. A move towards decentralized currency encourages security and ease of access in the modern world. Bitcoin is currently valued at $4,349.32 in US dollars, and its trend continues to grow. And with that, I hope I could teach you something about Bitcoin.